So, today we're going to look at chronic depression from a different angle, a more compassionate one, really, based on the work of Dr. Jerome Levin. This isn't about finding some magical cure, it's about exploring a new way to build a meaningful life, even when that darkness just seems to stick around. For anyone who's lived with chronic depression or watched someone they love go through it, this is probably the single most frustrating question. You try things, you have good days, sometimes even good months, but the one thing you can count on is its persistence. It just keeps coming back. And that brings us to a really difficult truth, one that Dr. Levin puts right out there from the start. For a lot of people, this idea of a complete, final cure, well, it might not just be unrealistic. It might actually be causing more harm than good. So, what does that harm actually look like? What does it feel like? Let's dive into the unspoken truth that so many people with this condition face every single day. Think about the power of a phrase like treatment resistant. It sounds so clinical, right? But for the person on the receiving end, it often just sounds like I'm a failure. It feeds this awful story that you're just not trying hard enough, or that something is just fundamentally broken inside you. To make this real, Dr. Levin tells the story of Ron Smith. After decades of struggling, a therapist told him to just mourn the years he'd lost and get on with his life. And his reaction wasn't sadness. It was pure, unfiltered anger. You can just feel that frustration, can't you? Being told to just get over a life that feels like it was stolen from you. It's that exact frustration that shows us why we need a new way of thinking about this. This isn't about just trying harder at the same old goal. It's about changing the goal itself. And this one question, this changes everything. It shifts your focus away from a battle you always feel like you're losing and points you toward a whole new mission, learning the skills for a different kind of life. It's a huge pivot from fighting to adapting.
Think about it like this. We don't treat pneumonia the same way we treat something like diabetes. Pneumonia, an acute illness, is something you get and then you hope you get over it. But a chronic illness is something you learn to live with. The goal shifts from getting rid of it to managing it and having the best quality of life you can.
And this leads us to a really crucial reframing of the whole issue, viewing chronic depression as a disability. Now, that's not a sign of weakness. It's an honest look at the real impact the condition has on your life. The goal then becomes adjustment, learning how to navigate the world with this reality.
So this new way of thinking has a name. It's called the Rehabilitation Approach. Let's break down what this new strategy actually looks like day to day.
Dr. Levin describes it as a coping strategy for what Winston Churchill famously called his black dog. The idea isn't to pretend the dog isn't there, right? It's about learning how to live alongside it without letting it call all the shots. This whole approach is really built on 4 main pillars, a kind of roadmap. It all starts with acknowledging the disability. Then it moves into the tough but really necessary work of mourning. After that, it's about learning to separate yourself from the disease. And finally, finding this delicate balance between accepting it and still having hope.
All right, let's start with that second step, which I know might sound a little strange at first, the importance of mourning.
Now, when we talk about mourning here, it has nothing to do with giving up. It's actually about being profoundly honest. It's about letting yourself grieve for the life you thought you'd have, for the opportunities that feel smaller now, and for the very real pain this illness has caused. It's a vital first step toward real acceptance. And to really get this, we have to understand one of the most important distinctions in the whole book. Sadness is a feeling. It's a normal human emotion. Depression, on the other hand, is a disease. And here's where it gets really interesting. The disease of depression can drain you of all your vitality. But allowing yourself to feel the natural human feeling of sadness, sadness for everything this disease has cost you, can actually be part of the healing process. It's a way of taking back your humanity from the illness. This process of honest mourning opens the door for the next crucial step, which is all about changing the relationship you have with your own identity. The analogy here is so simple, but it is incredibly powerful. You would never say, "I am arthritis." You'd say, "I have arthritis." That tiny change in language creates this critical distance. It separates who you are, your core self, from the illness that you're experiencing. And what that does is it totally shifts the conversation away from blame and toward responsibility. You are not to blame for having this illness. It is not your fault. But you are responsible for the one thing you actually can control, coping with it as well as you can. And that is where your power is. So all of this brings us to the final and maybe the most challenging part of this whole approach: finding a sustainable balance between two things that seem like complete opposites. Because this is a natural question, right? If I accept that I have this chronic disability, doesn't that just mean I'm giving up? That I'm resigning myself to a life of misery? Well, the answer here is a very clear no. The way forward is something called a dialectic. Now, don't let that word scare you. Just think of it like walking on a tightrope. You have to lean into two opposite forces just to stay balanced. It's about holding two different truths in your hands at the same time: the reality of your life today and the possibility of a better life tomorrow. See, acceptance means you're not at war with reality anymore. You see what's true right now, and you learn to live with it. But hope means you never, ever lock the door on the future. You stay open to the idea of a long remission or new treatment that might make a difference. Acceptance without hope is just despair. But hope without acceptance is delusion. You absolutely need both. And really, this is the central question that this approach leaves us with. It's not a puzzle with one easy answer. It's a daily practice, something to live by. And it suggests that a life with chronic depression doesn't have to be a life without meaning, or satisfaction, or even without joy.